Thank you, Seema, once again. Take care. Good night.
Thank you for your kind words, sir, and also for sharing your insights with us. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is the chairman of TMMA, and he is also the director of Yamuna Machine Works. Please put your hands together for Sri Prakash Mangutia.
Good morning, everybody. Respected dignitaries on dais, leaders of textile industry, representatives of SIMA, exhibitors, technocrats, members of textile machinery, fraternity, and friends. It gives me an immense pleasure to be here on behalf of TMMA for the inauguration of the 15th edition of the SIMA Textile 2026, which is one of the most prestigious platforms in Indian textile machinery, technology, and innovation. At the outset, I would like to sincerely congratulate Southern Indian Textiles Mills Association for consistently organizing this excellent exhibition. Over the years, this has become an important meeting point for all the stakeholders together to shape the industry. Friends, I'm coming from the machinery background, so I would just like to highlight a few points which are very important, and I feel this is the right platform to deliberate. The textile industry remains one of the strongest pillars of the Indian manufacturing economy. However, when we examine the textile engineering sector, the picture is a little different. As Mr. Mantri already said that we are one of the biggest textile market, yet we are heavily dependent on the imports of textile machinery. A large percentage of textile machinery in certain segments are still being imported. Today, the textile engineering industry comprises more than 3,500 companies, and we employ about 300,000 people with a revenue of more than 15,000 crores of machinery made in India. Yet, these numbers are not enough to meet the demands of our own textile industry. These strong numbers demonstrate that India already has a very good foundation. The task for us here is to scale up the technology, innovation, and also be globally competitive. As Mr. already deliberated, that the shift from cotton to man-made textile requires new technological capabilities in filament spinning, high-speed weaving, synthetic processing, and advanced finishing technologies. For the textile machinery manufacturers, this is not just a market shift, but it is also technological transformation. Friends, past few years have also reminded us on how vulnerable the global textile supply chain is, and with the present geopolitical conditions and the new FTAs, we have been forced as the companies worldwide to rethink their sourcing strategies. These developments have accelerated India, where India has emerged as a credible and a stable alternative global textile sourcing landscape. To leverage these opportunities, a strong textile machinery manufacturing industry is also essential. One of the key challenges facing in our industry is the technological gap between the Indian manufacturers and global leaders. Bridging this gap will require greater innovation, collaboration, strategic investment, and in my view, next 2 to 3 years will be very decisive for the future of Indian textile engineering industry. What we need now is greater innovation, strong industry, government collaboration, and long-term strategic vision. Events plays an important role in journey where ideas are exchanged. Once again, I congratulate SIMA, the organizers, exhibitors, and all the participants, and wish all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashantji, for sharing your perspective with us. Moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker further is Sri Prashant Agarwal, the co-founder and the joint managing director of Wazir Advisors. As a
expert in textiles and apparel strategy, is widely recognized for his work in transforming industry value chains, driving manufacturing excellence, and navigating the global textile market. I request you, sir, to kindly deliver the keynote lecture.
Thank you, and good morning to all the honored guests present over here. And when SIMA they invited me to give a keynote address here, I think the topic chosen was market state and strategic imperatives for Indian textile industry in the context of recent FTAs and trade. It is global trade because textile apparel industry, FTAs have impacted global trade in a big way. Then what is the opportunity for Indian industry, and then way forward for Indian players? So these three segments what I have divided my discussion today. So first, India is present in all these, and we have to target these markets. India is present in all these, and we have to target these markets to really encash on FTA. Let's understand a little bit in terms of what has been the FTA till now, what has been the impact of those FTAs. Let's take an example of US first. So US had FTA with, they have CAFTA, Central American countries, US, Mexico, Canada agreement, individual FTAs with certain countries, then you have AGOA. Together, if you see in last so many years this FTA exists, and US has only 18% share. FTA countries are able to supply only 18% of growth, overall import of US. So I think for US, because they never had FTA with some of the major producing countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, anybody, they never had any FTA. So FTA only exists with smaller players, and then through FTA only 18% of product gets supplied. For example, CAFTA countries overall trade after having FTA for so long was only 8 billion. US, Mexico, 5 billion. Individual FTA with smaller countries, Jordan, Kenya, then Peru, so all of this is 4 billion. AGOA, overall Africa, so much we have been talking about, is 1 billion to US. AGOA exists for so many decades, $1 billion. So you can understand that it's not only FTA but in US. But the moment, if you go to Europe, we have just signed, it is still to be ratified, but signed with EU, and UK may be ratified in another 2-3 months. Now understand the impact of in EU. In EU, because of these FTAs, almost 56% of global imports of EU is through FTA countries. And which are the countries with whom they have FTAs? They have FTAs with Pakistan, Bangladesh, Japan, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, Tunisia, Morocco. All of these countries together, they almost supply 56%. LDC countries like Bangladesh, 34 billion. Individual FTA, 13 billion. GSP plus countries, 10 billion. India is also among GSP plus. We get 9.6% import duty instead of 12. We have to, it's applicable to us. And associate agreements further 9 billion. So when EU FTA is signed, I think friends, we need to understand, even if the duty is 12%, and in our case it was 10% applicable, it makes a huge impact. The buyer and the supplier, because see, we don't play on big margins. Suddenly somebody gets 10%, 12% margin, they say, okay, let's start buying from countries like who have FTAs. So India having signed that FTA, while it might take a year to ratify, but buyers are already, it's not that suddenly it is ratified, tomorrow you start buying. You need to develop relationship, you need to develop supply base. So all of this is going to happen in next 1 year. And for India, I think it's not time to wait and watch. One has to be prepared, and then when time comes, when